Bonjour, hi, my name is Louis-Maxime Joly. I'm a candidate at the University of Quebec on Outaouais in Applied Social Sciences under the direction of Mathieu Perron-Dufour. So first, my PhD project was about local currencies, but I tried to move beyond what it is. And this kind of presentation I want to engage about those kind of monetary tools to see what are the social transformation that we can bring about, but also creation of money and also within other different unit of account. But there are issues with those kind of projects as they are, so how to move beyond what it is. That's why I call for inter-community monetary federalism, so in kind of these clearinghouses between communities to bring some kind of experimental spaces in the communities, but also between communities to reflect on this kind of decentralized economic democratic planning. So I will try to engage with some different literature, especially engage with what's going on in INDEP with the kind of democratic planning, but in some more realistic, more short-term kind of transformation in this prefigurative way to reflect about post-capitalism. So I will bring about the conversation that we had last year at Association Française d'Économie Politique. So all the reflection about political economy, also what's going on at RAMICS, where there are this research based on monetary innovation, and also the post-Keynesian reflection on money. So just going back to like some conversation of the past few days, what Louis-Maxime was calling, seeing this kind of increased centralization and imperialism for some kind of decentralized governance and greater local autonomy to bring about some kind of democracy as power to change things towards our institution, the way we do things, and maybe change the way it's going upward. Like and next on the other side, the sessions about next system studies. I was at the French Association for Political Economy a couple of weeks ago, and there was this call by Keza of the radical utopian vision of the scientific project, which I embrace, and most of you also do it the same way. Also in the continuity of the ideas of the progressive era, with the importance of addressing the civil society and have those kind of social transformation toward their needs and their goals. And so we need to put forward, as I put in my research, a multidisciplinary research, action-oriented. Also, at the Great Transition in Montreal a couple weeks ago, my director, Mathieu Perron-Dufour, was calling for this kind of domestication of money as reflecting as an emancipational tool. And so, yes, there are spaces for non-monetary relationship, but where they need to be, markets are not only capitalist institutions, they are something that we can use also, so we have some kind of coordination also. And so money as a tool is necessary to be put in place also at some level. And so for the major goal of my presentation is to reflect about how can we reflect on real-life decentralized planning with money, especially with local monies. So I draw inspiration from vast literature that seems opposed, but we can bring about in this like local experimentation, both on the democratic planning side and the libertarian municipalism. I engage in this kind of what we could call thin socialism or even post-IUCAN socialism, so we don't have to be like big plans for everything. The goal is to have a democratized system, also to have some kind of deliberation, to have our goals meted, and how can we put it in place. So I'm trying to engage you with your own project, your own reflection, and how we could put that into the community, those kind of planning, not wait for the big system to change and have those big plans, and how we can implement those ideas into those local systems. Also, as Oriane Lafontaine-Pietro has put it, in money, and especially in local currency, there's a lot of information that we can use for planning, and we should like really look to it because there's a lot of info that could help those kind of development, especially at the local side. Also, I embrace that kind of imaginary of communal luxury as been talked in the last few days. I try to go beyond what are local currencies to engage in real local monies with money creation. And so what they could permit is through a community deliberation process to determine our own goal in that kind of like decentralized democratic planning. And with money creation, we could allow the credit to create what production and create a business that we need to respond to the demand of the general population that is not responding in the capitalist system right now, and so the local currency, local money, could be used for local consumption to validate the production. There are really a lot of issues with local currencies as they are, and so I'm trying to move beyond what it is and offer them the space they need to develop in something more. And so it's why my presentation is mainly about inter-community monetary federalism. For the presentation, I'll try to bring how I came to this project, from looking from a crisis to cooperative, and also this kind of go beyond social solidarity economy, and how we can create monetary space for their development. And so I'll call to go beyond what it is with complementary local currencies to engage in indigenous local monies with money creation. And so the project are not there, so we need to develop this kind of federalized monetary clearing and also lending system. And also I'll look at some inspiration and how we could build that. So I came into economic after the 2007-2008 crisis, looking for solutions, but in most economic departments were not so much. I was really inspired by Robert Adams' participatory economics. That opened my mind about doing something more. We were, most of my study, we were in this case neoliberal austerity that put us in strike. If you look at downstairs where there were big repression about those ideas and stuff like that. So that was this kind of development of ideas that was bring up in that moment, that bring about, and that I try to put in my reflection. I did some research for the unions to find some alternative for the austerity with the post-Keynesian thought, where there was kind of large solution about wage-led growth, Green New Deal, and stuff like that. That's the kind of utopia that we wish to put in place, but we still live in this kind of state neoliberal domination, and there is limitation. It's why Dardo and Laval are putting in place this kind of praxis institutionnelle, instituent praxis, so as the creation of institution, change of the way we live, change the way we think economically, and change the way we exchange, we can develop this cosmopolitic of common that can bring about some kind of socio-economic transformation. Also at one time I tried to develop cooperative with the buying of the Abidoka. So it was a reflection about how to create self-managed spaces for both production and living. Yes, there was some money from the Chantier d'économie sociale, but there were limits understand pretty rapidly. Access to Canadian dollar, even if you have some kind of subsidies, at some point we have to pay interest also in that national currency, and especially if it's a co-op for co-ops, they have difficulty to develop really like competitive aspect, especially in a capitalist environment. You pretty well rapidly put in front of your own production and the system as the social economy in general. It's why I was moved to work more on monetary space of autonomy to protect those kind of initiatives, those kind of cooperation between different members, between different enterprise, and so on. My master thesis, I work on post-Keynesian ideas and their strategy, and there was always this call for the real message of Keynes towards the euthanasia de rentier and the socialization of investment is also put forward in the democratic planning, as Durand has put it. But when we talk about the nationalization of bank and stuff, that's not the kind of thing that we'll see tomorrow in neoliberalism. So if we want to engage with that kind of full public control over banking and finance system, if not at the national level, why not experience it today at the local level? Frédéric Gordon has put it in this word, all those kind of utopia projects that want to live without institution, police, work, and money. But every time you see a creation of community, those things are there. They're fundamental about the way society or a community are being built. So there's no such thing as a community without money. We have to have a communication language to coordinate ourselves, which could be a lot of things like time or resources and everything, but it's still accounting, it's still money. As Bernard Lietaer has put it, we must rethink money to go beyond the scarcity and reflect the future of it. We're creating new wealth, new valorization, and a wiser world with what it was called back in the day, people's money and regional currencies, which are just different appellations of the same goal. Also, I have in mind that globalism in a globalized world has a lot of limits. But at the same time, as Alain Deneau has put it, the bioregion is the place to be. Because neither the state nor the market is capable right now to respond to the public crisis, towards ecology, towards social needs, and stuff like that. Every time there's a crisis, we go back to great transformation about the commodification of land, labor, and money. And so a lot of time there's people that try to build other projects, new innovative, take back control of the money thing, and after that you can control your accounting, you can control your credit, and control your system. In this kind of view, it's not, it's pretty logical to see how people are really drawn into those kind of blockchain, techno-utopia, and stuff like that, based on this little neoliberal thought that's been taught to us, and also this kind of utopian vision. It's why some people are being drawn to this kind of libertarian vision of Bitcoin, this interconnection of people, this no intermediation of those that bring people about in this kind of spontaneous order of Hayek. But we must not just put that aside. We must engage with why people are drawn to those projects and put in place better projects so that we have better development that responds really to their needs and not some kind of libertarian utopia which cannot be about. So it's why I reflect on local currencies, especially local monies, which can bring people into those circles and develop differently also. But they must not be just simple escapism projects. They must be an alternative, and they must be developed in that way, in that sense. It's why I'm calling to go beyond local, complementary local currency to engage in indigenous local monies, and where local monies can permit what the local development of reciprocity through accounting. We can recognize everyone's participation, and as Zoé Larval was talking, la monnaie en commun, the making money in common. We're all Canadian because we use the same union account. We can recognize each other with this kind of union account that makes us a community. And so by building a new union account, a new money, that builds a new community for this kind of development of reciprocity. So as Elijah has put it, we must move beyond fungibility, which is the general usage of the money on the landscape, and where territorial partitioning can permit this kind of space of autonomy and space of deliberation and participation. And where monetary plurality was a thing of all time, even in the Sumerian time, it was always there. Also, the État has put it from a large system, a complex system, having just one money. When it breaks down, all the system breaks down. So having different monies also in place brings a lot of resilience, like we had in the 2008 crisis with the VIR in Switzerland. There was this business-to-business relationship that was created, continue to be given on, that could develop and still go on. Also, during the 2000 crisis in Argentina, the Real de Truque was put in place so that people can have access to money and continue the relationship, and also the work right now with the complementary local currency in France put also that in face of this question of resilience faced to the public crisis. But also, as Sorg has put it yesterday, the question about finance is a form of economic planning. So instead of asking the financier or the banker, can we or can we not do a project? Can we take our own decision in our mind and say, what are the projects that will be done this year, on what basis, and having the language and the possibility of credit creation. So I'm in continuity with Simon and Sophie's vision to go beyond large model, and how can we apply those ideas to those kind of model and connect the institutions that are doing things differently. It's why I call for the democratized monetary circuit. So we have this kind of community deliberation where there's economic planning for the main goals. After that, we create the money through allocation of credit that creates the businesses and initiate production to meet the demand. That opens a lot of spaces for different ideas, different way of configuring those kind of stuff. Instead of doing money advance for what? For investment, we can do simply money advance for wages, like in some kind of time banks plus. Also, the idea of theory about a fiscal time currency. Instead of paying your fiscal dues in money, you can also pay in time towards your community and your work time. Those are possibilities that we could recognize through different accounting, different monies. Following the post-Keynesian institutionalist teaching on money, we need to move beyond exogeneity of complementary local currencies to adopt endogeneity, which I'll explain in a second. We should make them genuine alternative money. So in this view about complementary local currency, we bring about national currency and implemented it into the system, and we just circulate it in the system. It is pretty much the same view as Bernanke has put it, like in his pseudo-Nobel Prize, about where banks are only intermediate between lenders and depositors. But banks are not. Banks are the way the credit is emitted, the money is put into circulation, and after that it goes to the firms, it goes to the household, and comes back into a real flux. It's just an accounting, it's double accounting. When we create a loan, it creates an asset and a debt on both sides, and when we pay back, it goes destroyed, as George Mason has put it. Looking back on the problem of structural and conceptual of local, complementary local currencies, and this kind of thing, they have in mind not the unit of account. They just have a media of exchange. So it puts a lot of limitations that I'll go after that. Also, what I have in mind is only the velocity, the circulation of money. But when you look at the data on money, velocity doesn't pretty much change anytime. What it changes is money creation, the flux, that what's going in and what's going out also. So if you don't have control over it, you don't have control on credit, you don't have control on investment, so you're just circulating money. But it's not enough to go beyond. Also, this is linked to some kind of Marxist vision that debt is a bad thing, but debt is just the opposite side of money. Every asset has its liability. So if you want to dream of something else, but it's just accounting. So on the operation problems of those one, we want one linked to the national currency. There's liquidity problem. There's money going in, there's money going out of the system because of the conversion. So that puts a lot of restraint. Also, with the integration of labor and production, since the main price are being priced in national currency, there are big limitations on those production. But one of the main opposition that put it to those systems is what I call the incorporation of the dominant evaluation regime. Since you're thinking one for one, but you're thinking like in Canadian dollars, so some people are $1,000, some people worth $50,000. And so you incorporate that way to accounting. So you invent new rules, new way of doing things, but you still have the same psychology. So it's why I'm trying to move beyond, develop new way of valorization, valorizing things, and having different unit of account that could permit different things also in the system. Some people are saying that the system, those systems doesn't work, like there's a lack of involvement, but because people are giving up. Why are they giving up? Because like the biggest one in France, the ESCO, they're not monetary project, they're a social one. It's not bad to be social, people bring together, but when you're selling a monetary product and people don't see the outcome, they get disappointed and they never come back, and that has an implication. And so, like the Dikatsu, which is at Réunion, which is built on ESCO, so we need their design, that's what I'm trying to engage in. There are interesting things like the SASE, which is a multilateral credit system between enterprise, but still the national currency permits some kind of monetary creation as the V also, but still being linked to the national currency, that's kind of accounting, that's kind of different information, this different valorization, put some limits. So I'm trying to address, go beyond what it is, go beyond convertibility and adopt a new unit of account that would allow the creation of money, and so money. Looking at some kind of nice experiences, mutual credit system that are real endogenous associative credit based on value of work that we could really recognize in those kind of system. Those talk about homework and stuff like that could be put in place, but still complementary because there are two small systems, and how can we augment them so they have a real utility in the system. Also, those kind of experimentation with multi-currency system, Delandre has put it with 4 types of resources, 4 types of money vector. It's pretty much some kind of project, as Zurg has put it, but without token, but with real money creation. So in short, we need to create a condition to move beyond complementary local currency and feature in national currency and offer the strengths of genuine and indigenous local money. How to do that? Monetary federalism as is needed to achieve that. What I'm saying about Federalism, it's in the sense of Polanyi, this federal democratic mutual socialist system, or this mutualist of Proudhon, as put it in Bantuda, are largely in the First International. So the thesis goal is mainly about how to connect communities and then member, go beyond the CLC, and also try to maintain sovereignty and independence. So the question of my research, what type of institutional organization will enable community using local currency to exchange and develop cooperative financial ties? So here I'm trying to develop some kind of dashboard to inter-community system, so all the decisions that were put in place, what are the limits of the flexibility that will put forward, and how can we develop those systems. I will test that with stock flow consistent model to see where the system crashed and try to find some stable development. So that puts also some development on where we can go with that, with this kind of scaling multi-level interaction that opens possibility that goes beyond this conversation about integration, competition, taxation, and also democratic planning between communities. Looking at inspiration, but mainly non-inspiration, target two for himself. In Europe, you lose monetary sovereignty, there's fiscal conservatives. My euro benefits the strongest, not the weakest, so we must go beyond a one-size-fits-all currency. Local currency board, which are insured to a national currency, especially US dollar, it's again lots of monetary and political sovereignty that bring the 2000 crisis in Argentina. So we must move beyond national currency anchor. Again, on non-inspiration, gold standard on its side, highly political, large imbalances. Also, everyone is indebted toward each other, but it's bilateral relationship, so it blocks everywhere all the time. So we must reflect on this kind of multilateral credit and clearing system. Again, with the national currency, with Fed wire, problem of liquidity, again, the problem of clearing, which is the same, and also we can see right now there's a lot of political control, so we must develop alternative accounting, multilateral clearing systems. So that's why I'm against a simple interchange model that we just exchange local currency between each other and engage in this kind of compartmentalization where there's internal money in the community, they manage, they work with it, and also there's the inside interaction, like in the common account. There was the RUB and the convertible RUB we see in place also, that it's there for exchange and development and permits local sovereignty. Rapidly, with the kind of inspiration, national clearing system, like we have in Canada with the large value transfer system, which are simple clearinghouse that have high-powered money that could clear banks together. We can develop that for community currencies, interaction, and federalism. That goes hand in hand with Keynes' international clearing, but that we must go beyond. First and foremost, Bangkok was not a reserve currency. The goal is not to accumulate. The goal is simply to account the transaction between the community. In those kind of mechanisms, there was some kind of control and political and economic mechanisms, such as that surplus and deficit countries, here communities, share the burden of this development also. We don't want to just colonize those little community. We want to bring them about, and they will bring you about, and we'll just develop the strongest together. As Davidson has put it, where the creditor institution needs to spend the surpluses credit towards the other community. Also, as Bernard Lieta has put it with his project of Terra, let's continue this vision. The unit account can be based on a basket of community services and carbon emission. They could be demurrage or even negative interest, where there's melting money that force the people in surpluses to spend. We must go beyond disequilibrium, as Kaletsky has put it, because it puts so much pressure on a small community. It doesn't permit cooperation, because it doesn't permit development. The goal is not just to clear transaction, not just to acquire equilibrium exchange. The goal is to develop spaces of autonomy, spaces of development, and go on. So it's why Kaletsky and Schumacher was calling for clearing and lending combined with this kind of money creation, like in central bank, but also at the national level or in the inter-community level, which is simply demand-driven as every credit. As Hegel has put it in his reflection about it, I met him like in December 2023 last time, was saying that the kind of project seems utopian, but it was in the King's Plan. It was their original clearing, where I'm trying to go beyond and develop a complexity, a diversity of different languages in the community, but between community, And instead of just being post-Keynesian, like I was saying, like dream that people will listen to us and will bring the Keynes project, why not just try it on our own, on our basis, the basis that we can control, which is mostly local. There are always, like Jérôme Blanc, which is one specialist on local currency, says there's this new paradox that local currencies are either too small, too big, but within this kind of project, your local community money, and also this outside money, there's no such thing. Every community has their language, because they have different way of organizing, different way of valorizing things, and they have this way to compensate between one another. I'll pass the toolkit to just go. Also, the trilemma, we are in full capital control, so we don't have this kind of issue because we want monetary sovereignty and political sovereignty. But at the same time, there are always external logic because we're still in a capitalist system. We want to develop some kind of autonomous space also, so we must interact with the outside. One of the ideas that Hélène de l'Argentais has put in place is the idea of buffer stocks. So interaction between communities in another account, they can develop buffer stocks from themselves to manage their production and surplus and stabilize the demand between communities, but also building a buffer stocks toward the outside permits what? To accumulate also national currency and engage and have a legitimate position and power position toward the system, and then being this little guy on their side doing their little thing with their little money. And so it's why we need an alternative to that monetary structure. In conclusion, the goal was to present a prefigurative post-capitalist proposition that could be used for democratic economic planning. So it's time to imagine genuine endogenous local monies for local economic self-determination to the social liberation, creation of credit, and general usage. To make it happen, we need to this kind of inter-community monetary federalism with multilateral compensation and lending, without necessarily going through conversion to national currency or interchange, and doing so by adapting new unit of account between communities, such as Taylor I was talking earlier. So we need a federative monetary union capable of offering the necessary credit and monetary language that responds to the need between communities. In order to go beyond the objective of equilibrium, we need to go beyond trying to simply sell account, but above all, try to enable the development of viable alternative spaces without the broader current capitalist one. And so we need to do this while preserving the diversity of communities and monetary language to enable diversity of action and valorization in the communities and between them. And so this is one of the old paper that's still in English. I have new things in French, but I'm just going back to PhD, so it should be done like in 3 years.